We believe in reviewing and reflecting on what has gotten you the most engagement in the past.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Take Back Your Biz Summit, where I'm chatting with industry influencers on how they have found more freedom, growth, and joy in their businesses by taking back what matters to them. I'm your host, Lauren Black, creative strategist and owner of Bosscation, a business retreat in a box to help entrepreneurs like you get away from your daily distractions to strategically plan for your business. So I am so excited for this summit and all of the experts who are sharing, and also this awesome, massive giveaway that we have. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, make sure you head on over to takebackyyourbiz.com and sign up for the giveaway. And we also have details of our challenge, and you can find all the speaker videos there. So for now, I am so excited to introduce you guys to the twin duo, Kendra and Kleneice Chambers. So hi, ladies.
Hi, Lauren. Good to be here with you.
Yes, I am so excited to chat with you live. And so we've got Kendra in white and Kleneice in gray. So that everybody knows. Yeah. So they are the twin duo behind Humble and Whole, a digital marketing consulting agency that helps entrepreneurs really get a handle of your social media to build tribes that connect with your clients so that you can build it strategically and you're not just shouting to the void with your social media and your marketing. So I am excited to chat with them about taking back your visibility. So ladies, before, to introduce this, I just want to hear exactly why you think it's important for people to take back their visibility.
Awesome. Thanks for introducing us, Lauren. We're super passionate about encouraging entrepreneurs to take back their visibility because we noticed that there was this common theme going around, this phrase that we keep hearing that says, if you're not visible, then you don't have a business. And while that's true to a certain extent, we've noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs are really overextending themselves, struggling, trying to be visible on every single platform. So most of, the clients that we've worked with at some point were on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, sometimes even YouTube, and they've got a podcast, and it's like, well, let's pump the brakes first and see where your tribe actually is. To reduce your workload and gain back those hours of the day that are so precious.
Yeah, quite simply, we know visibility is one of those big buzzwords in our industry.
Yeah.
And so what we really strive to do is help entrepreneurs get that right, so that they're not wasting time getting visible in places where they shouldn't even be, or where they're not even connecting with their target audience, which we literally see every day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you hear the stories of everybody who's burned out in their business, including myself, that people are like, oh, I was in Facebook for like 10 hours a day. And, I was on Instagram all day long and tweeting, and it can be overwhelming and pull you away from the time you can spend on other things in your business.
Exactly. And the reason why we're so passionate about it is because we went through it ourselves, right? So like you said, Lauren, you've struggled with burnout before. We have too, because Humble and Whole, isn't our first online venture that we had. So we actually had a nursing blog first, and right out of the gate, we were like, we're ready to build this audience. We want to get our name out there as quickly as possible. So we started on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. And we were really struggling to, be consistent. Trying to grow all of those platforms at once was really hard. So we hit the wall. We definitely burned out with that.
Yeah. Well, and we think that, if I'm posting everywhere, then I'm just going to grow into this overnight success, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how are some ways? Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, and that's not the case because usually when you're trying to grow multiple platforms at once, if you don't have the support, what ends up happening is we see entrepreneurs just posting without a strategy. So, not really getting anywhere.
Yeah, I used to think my strategy was, okay, I'm going to post this many times a day to Twitter, 5 times a day to Twitter, 3 times a day to Instagram, this many times a day to Facebook. And that's not a strategy, that's a schedule.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we see that all the time, where people are posting multiple times a day, whether it's like in Facebook groups or on Twitter, and then they wonder why their posts aren't converting or why they're not landing clients or making more sales. And it's the exact reason you just said, because you have a schedule, not a strategy.
Yeah. So what are some ways people can be strategic about taking back their visibility?
Right. So the first thing we would suggest, which is something that we preach to our tribe all the time, is just, take a step back and cut out all of the platforms. You don't have to be everywhere. Take a look at where you have received the most engagement, because engagement is going to show you that you are connecting with your tribe. So if there's a platform where, you're hearing crickets, you may want to put that on the back burner for a little while. And we try to recommend that our clients or even our audience just, start with 2 platforms. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be everywhere.
Yeah, so that's a good first step, is don't tackle all of the social media platforms at once, because you're going to quickly burn out that way. And you can't be intentional starting with like all 4 at once. Another huge thing that we recommend is to show up where your target audience is. So to give you a specific example, Lauren, a big mistake that we see entrepreneurs make literally every day is they're sharing in Facebook groups with their peers, but that's not necessarily their target audience. So they're literally marketing to people who aren't going to purchase their products or sign on for their services. But if you show up in the places where your target audience is, that's how you can start to see those conversions a lot faster.
Well, yeah, and I think it's about building those authentic relationships. I saw somebody recently posting in a Facebook group asking, he's like, I post to like 10 Facebook groups all the time, and the same question to all of them, the same advice, he said, the same advice to all of them. And some people have deleted my posts. I don't understand, I'm giving advice. But sounds to me like he's just spamming those groups. If you're posting to 10 groups the same exact piece of advice, then that's just kind of, how do you guys feel about that as a strategy?
Right. So that doesn't really sound like a strategy to begin with. And there's no need for you to have to be present even in 10 groups. 1 or 2, max 3 filled with your target audience is more than enough. And you absolutely don't have to just post to the wall advice like every single time. That's great if you truly do have value to share. But what's really important is that when you're in those groups with your target audience, that you ask questions. Questions will, typically bring out, people who are struggling with the exact thing that you may have created a product for, or that you may have a service to be able to help them. So we found that asking questions instead of just, posting day in and day out has been extremely helpful. But yeah, absolutely. To have 10, to be visible in 10 groups, whoo, that's a lot.
And I love that example, Lauren, because again, we see that all the time. We're in Facebook groups just like watching, and we see people make those same mistakes over and over again. So you don't want to just talk at your target audience, right? So just share the exact same post in 10 groups. That's not going to work. Like Kendra said, you want to make sure that if you're showing up exactly where your target audience is, ask them questions. That's a chance for you to even get in some market research, So find out exactly what they're struggling with. Find out if your services and your products are aligned with what they're struggling with in this season.
Right. And then if you're able to create even a blog post or your social media posts about those questions and answering, other people's questions that they answered back, then you're now creating this conversation with your audience and, really being able to serve them. They feel like they're a part of it. If they're, they're posting questions and you're answering them, then yeah, that's building that relationship.
Right.
Exactly. And I love how you just said that, from your presence in those Facebook groups that you should create blog posts. So that's actually why we recommend scaling back on the visibility in terms of how many platforms that you're showing up on, because we encourage our audience to create blog posts
Mm-hmm.
from what they see their target audience talking about in the Facebook groups or on Instagram or on Twitter, because your blog can truly build trust so quickly. So Kleneice and I even have had success with that. Sometimes people aren't really sure how to approach their target audience to get them to want to invest in them down the line. But Kleneice and I have found success from even just sharing our blog, and someone was like, wow, you two have such helpful information. I want you to personally look at, my situation.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's one girl, a web developer that I met in a Facebook group because she was consistently posting on the Thursday blog post day. She would show up with her blog post, and every single one was so, smart and just provided so much value that I knew if I ever needed a web developer, I was hiring her.
Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Because, your blog is so powerful. You don't necessarily have that competition factor. When someone is really engaged on your blog, they're consuming, all of your awesome advice and tips. And we just think that's so much more valuable than trying to be everywhere at one time.
Yeah. Now, how do people, when they're first starting out and they may not know where their tribe is, how do they select which blog or which social media platforms they should be on?
Right. So what we like to recommend is first make sure that it's a platform that you actually can see yourself spending time on, because consistency is huge in the beginning, right? If you absolutely hate Twitter, don't start there, because you're not going to show up consistently. If you aren't sure where to get started, take a look at your industry. Take a look at where others in your industry are showing up online. And more often than not, you'll see that the industry leaders may be everywhere, but take a look at where they're getting the most engagement. That should help you narrow it down to 2 to 3 platforms. Of those 2 to 3, make sure that you decide to show up where you feel that you can be consistent. If you absolutely hate Twitter or Instagram, please don't pick that platform, because you want to make sure that you're going to be consistent. Consistency is so important in the beginning. So make sure that you choose platforms that you actually enjoy being present on.
Another good way to figure out where to start, like Kendra said, you want to pick platforms that you're going to actually enjoy showing up on. And like Kendra mentioned, sometimes industry leaders will be on multiple platforms, but if we take designers, for instance, most popular designers are probably on all 4 platforms, but that to show off your design work, Twitter may not be the best platform, but Instagram and Pinterest are way more visual. So it helps to think about the nature of the platforms too when you're considering where you want to get visible.
That's true. To also consider the nature of the content that's shared, because Pinterest is extremely valuable for visuals, but also if you're consistent with your blog, because you can easily share blog posts on Pinterest. So maybe if you haven't, started with your blog yet, you could choose Instagram.
Yeah.
So it just depends on where you are right now in your business, what content you have stored up, but also what makes sense for your industry.
Yeah. So now let's say somebody is growing in their business and they want to expand social media platforms. When do they know it's a good time for that?
Right. So we recently did this ourselves in our business. We started with just Instagram and Pinterest, and then we moved on a few months down the road to Facebook. And then honestly, about a month ago, we expanded to Twitter. But what we did to kind of walk through that process is we waited until we were consistently meeting our goals on Instagram, on Pinterest. So once we had a steady flow of traffic, once we had done our research to look at the tools that we would need if we wanted to expand. So with Twitter, we knew that we were going to need a heavy duty tool to keep up with the content demands of that platform. So therefore we didn't expand until we budgeted for that tool.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart, because then instead of having to manually plan out every single tweet, you made room for, okay, I'm going to, save up for whatever social media scheduler that you're using that'll usually repurpose your content for you, track the analytics a little better. So what programs do you use?
Cool. So we use SmarterQ to schedule Facebook and Twitter, and that has been a lifesaver. We were just working on a blog post about how much time we save with SmarterQ. We use Board Booster to manage Pinterest. In the past, we have used Tailwind, but we kind of go back and forth between those a little bit. And then we also use Planoly for Instagram.
And we know that some social media people are just looking for like one tool to do it all. Mm-hmm. But honestly, with schedulers and with apps, there are some that are just best suited for one platform. So that's why I know it sounds like a lot to use 3 tools for social media, but Board Booster, in our opinion, is the best for Pinterest. Planoly is the best for Instagram, and then for SmarterQ for Facebook and Twitter. So they all have their different strengths, but we don't recommend like using one scheduler for all of your social media.
Yeah, I had tried at one point when I was back in my day of wanting to post 5 times a day to Twitter and 3 times to Instagram and all these to Facebook. I was using Hootsuite for trying to do everything, and I hated the Instagram integration of Hootsuite.
Yes, that one's awful, right?
Yeah, actually the whole Hootsuite, no offense Hootsuite, but I couldn't stand Hootsuite. But I found that later.com, even though I started paying for even SmarterQ at one point for a little while, and I just liked Later for Instagram so much that I'm like, I don't care if I'm paying for both. I need this for Instagram.
Right. Yeah. Some of them are just, like the Instagram schedulers are better than say like Hootsuite. And I think even SmarterQ has Instagram capabilities, and we're like, no, we have something for that already.
Yeah. Well, you can see your feed, correct? And Planoly, I think you can move things around, and
So we love that.
And you can even plan stories, which is so cool.
Oh, shoot. I need to switch platforms. That is a nice little secret there that I'm sure isn't a secret, but it was to me.
Yes, we're trying to get you on our side.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Later, but that might have me sold.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what are some ways that people can kind of make the process of coming up with your social media content a little easier?
So we believe in reviewing and reflecting on what has gotten you the most engagement in the past to move forward. So what we will say is that asking questions is one of the best pieces of content that you can put out on across the board. We would say, well, except on Pinterest, because that's just, repinning your content. But questions do well on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. But you want to make sure that you also repurpose. So we've run into a few clients who have been trying to create something new for each post. We're like, no, that's wasting too much time. So kind of like a neat trick that we do in our own business is we will just take a look at maybe the outline for a blog post that we did, or we'll even just look at it after it's been uploaded on the website, and we'll just look for quick tips that we can create so that we can share those to Facebook and Twitter. But yeah, really working smarter instead of harder when it comes to social media content. So breaking down the content that you already have, and taking another look at your competitors in your industry. What's getting the most engagement on their accounts? There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, if you see something that's working, might as well repurpose it, put your own voice to it, but, make use of someone else's research that figured out that works.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I love how Kendra brought up repurposing content, because we have worked with clients and run into entrepreneurs just in this online space who don't repurpose. And that makes it so much harder. That's another way that you can get burnt out with social media. If you're constantly trying to come up with new content all the time, which is silly because as your audience continues to grow, there are going to be people who didn't know that you posted that 2 or 3 months ago. Right? So there's no reason to put that pressure on yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And some people might not be on your Facebook seeing your Facebook page and on your Instagram seeing the same post, or a newsletter that you wrote 3 months ago. They might not, have even opened the newsletter. So it's okay to repurpose some of that.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that that's the culprit for entrepreneurs working harder is we make assumptions. So we assume that everyone who's following us on Twitter is following us on Instagram, or that they read every single blog post and open every single newsletter. And that's just, that doesn't happen. We promise.
Now you do. Everyone out there does have those diehard fans who do that, right? Who do read every single thing, but you can't assume that that's your entire audience. We would love for that to be true, but we can take advantage of how that isn't true.
Right. Well, I was, putting out a poll to my audience at one point, and I believe I asked in a Facebook group, maybe it was either on my page. No, it was on my page. So I asked on my Facebook page, I sent out a newsletter asking the same question, and I put it on my Insta stories. And Insta stories now has that little poll, like yes or no, that you can click. And I had the most engagement from the Insta stories.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that just goes to show that even within one platform, right? So we've seen this before with some of our friends, where they get more engagement in Instagram stories than they do even on their Instagram posts. So that just goes to show you that, like, even within one platform, you can see like a complete difference with engagement. It's so cool.
And that's one of the tips that we try to share, is that before you expand to another platform, try to experiment with the features of that platform. So Instagram, you can post to the grid, you can do Instagram Live, you can do Instagram Stories. So instead of, maybe migrating to Facebook for the live feature, try Instagram Live and see what your reach is before you completely bring on a different platform. I know that did play a role in us, kind of holding off on expanding to Facebook and Twitter, because we were playing around with the different capabilities of Instagram.
Yeah. I know one time or a couple times I've gone live on both, on Instagram and Twitter. So I'll do Instagram on my phone and set it on a tripod, like right up next to my camera. And so then I've got Facebook on my computer and Instagram on my phone. And it makes it a little awkward because your eyesight's jumping back and forth between the two. And at one point I was watching someone else that was doing the same thing. And they're like, oh, Ilya says blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it doesn't show that Ilya's on here. She's not commenting. Well, she was on Instagram while I was on Facebook. So, but that's a good test, because you can see how many people are live in one spot versus the other.
Yeah, exactly. So, we would definitely recommend just play around with the different features before you, add that pressure to yourself of creating content and having to create a schedule for a whole nother platform.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what are your best tips, or the ways that you track kind of analytics to even see what is working?
So the different apps have kind of like their own setup for analytics. So that does tend to vary. But what we love to do is just, we'll go back a week to review, or 2 weeks, or a month, no later than that. And we'll just honestly just click on our posts and see like how they perform. The analytics that matter most to us is engagement and like the quality of the comments that we receive. So we're not too hung up on analyzing our followers or likes. Would you say like we're pretty, concerned about the comments that we receive?
Yeah, what we try to do is look at, and this would be for all of the platforms except for Pinterest. Pinterest analytics are a whole nother beast.
Yeah, they are.
But for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, we're really interested in what sparked the most conversation among our audience, so that we can produce more of that content. What I can even give like a recent example. On our Facebook page, we started to share those quick tips that Kendra mentioned earlier. So just taking snippets from our blog posts. And I think we've only been doing that for about 2 weeks. But for some reason, that is what's getting the most engagement on our Facebook page right now.
And also on Twitter.
Yeah, and also on Twitter. So we know that whereas right now we only have a couple of time slots for that in our Smarter Queue schedule, we know we can probably go back and add more since that's what our audience is really commenting on and reacting to.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to do just what you said, of look at the engagement, because followers don't mean squat if no one's actually like listening. You know, they might hit a like button and never turn back to your page and not be commenting. And that means they're not reading your, you know, blog posts when they see the link to your blog post, and they're not, you know, connecting with you.
Exactly. So you always want to analyze what is resonating with people. And so our way of judging that is by comments, because when we were building Humble and Whole, that's the way that we interacted with the people that we admired. If something really resonated with us, we left a comment. So yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah. And it's good to look at your analytics to see what's getting the most engagement, what's sparking the conversation, because then you don't have to market in the dark. You don't have to just, you know, throw spaghetti at the wall. I don't know if my audience really needs to hear this, or I think this is what I should post because this is what I wanted to know when I was starting out, but that might be completely different from what your audience wants. So when you really take the time to look at your analytics, then you become that much of a smarter marketer. So.
Exactly. Because when we started with the quick tips, like I honestly didn't load that many of them because I didn't think that they were really going to resonate with people, but now we know. So
yeah, one thing I was surprised to see people connected with in my first business is graphic design. And I would do Font Crush Friday on my Instagram. And at one point, when I was kind of switching businesses over, I stopped posting to Instagram, and I had someone that's picked up where I left off, and she started doing Font Crush Friday because she loved it so much.
Wow. Talk about being an influencer.
It's so tiny, I don't, but those things, obviously someone was listening, It's great to hear when someone actually responds, because then you know that you're not just shouting to the void.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. Being mindful and intentional with your visibility is all about making sure that the content that you put out is resonating with people, not just showing up everywhere, just to be there for the sake of being there, but, actually that you're serving people well.
Yeah, that's definitely important. So how can we be more intentional with, our business? What do you guys do in general that is very intentional?
Sure. So I would say something that we have been consistent with since the beginning has been relationship building. So
that's a huge one.
Yeah. So, we've talked about this with our own tribe, and they'll ask, well, how do you build relationships with people? But honestly, it's like where you get started is just leaving those genuine comments, because everyone wants to know if their content is resonating with people. So when you respond to someone, whether on social media or actually a really good tip, even if you're trying to get in touch with a really big influencer, is to respond to their email, because a lot of people don't reply in the email. So whether it's social media, email, or maybe you hopped on a webinar, just letting someone know that their content did resonate with you is the gateway. And then we also love to do coffee chats with other entrepreneurs. Honestly, that has been quite huge when it comes to collaborations that we've been a part of, and also coffee chats have led to clients. I remember one time I had no idea that a coffee chat was going to turn basically into a discovery call.
Oh, no.
So you just never know. But that's our favorite way to build relationships, I would say, is for us to hop on those coffee chats. What else would you say?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit more. So we've always been intentional with networking, and social media, it has two sides. Of course, you're using social media to market, but you also have to use it to be social, so to network.
Yeah.
It's so funny sometimes when we're talking with other entrepreneurs, we'll tell them, after analyzing our own data, we know that most of our clients come from Facebook, and then right behind Facebook is Instagram. And people are like, oh my gosh, how do you get clients from Instagram? And it's like the same way that you would from Facebook. You actually have to connect with people. You can't just post and run. So I would say from the very beginning, we've always been intentional about networking with people, and that's paid off huge.
Yeah, I think that's a theme I keep hearing in these sessions, you know, the interviews with people, is that relationships really do matter. And, you know, being strategic with your content matters, as you've said, and not just posting everywhere, but being very careful with how you build up those relationships with your audience, and so that you can do it the right way.
And I love that everyone keeps saying that, because it's so true. And I feel like relationship building is so easily overlooked, because everyone's after, well, what's the thing that's going to make me sales the fastest, or, you know, get me the most clients? And it's relationship building. But I guess that doesn't sound, you know, appealing enough.
Yeah, that doesn't sound glamorous, but
yeah.
True.
Well, sometimes too, you think that just putting out, you know, promos is going to be what's driving people in. And, you know, then I think some people tune you out if you're just putting out promo after promo all the time.
Yeah, they are. And we have like a personal example of that, like with our first blog, when we were trying to target new nurses and nursing students, our Twitter, we looked like spam bots.
It was awful.
Because all we were doing was posting like our new blog posts or our opt-ins, and we were like, how come we aren't getting followers on Twitter?
We're not growing. And then, you know, I don't know, we just took a look at it and we were like, wow, we are not interacting with people on Twitter. We're not commenting. We're not retweeting other people's stuff. Literally all we're doing is promoting like nonstop. And, you know,
once we fixed that, we were like, well, let's actually act like people on Twitter. That's when our following started growing like very quickly. So, but yeah, that was because, you know, we were on all the platforms at once trying to just do promo
just show up, you know, and that's what happens. You'll just get into this routine of just showing up without strategy.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, ladies, this was amazing. You shared so many great tips on getting back your visibility, growing your social media the right way. So where can people find you online?
So we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest with the same username at Humble and Whole. And you can also find us at humbleandwhole.com.
Or you can always email us at hello@humbleandwhole.com as well.
Yeah, we love to give away, you know, personalized advice. So we don't mind if people send us an email. If there's something that you're struggling with and, you know, maybe you can't find it on the blog, just send us an email. We'll be more than happy to, you know, walk you through whatever roadblock you're facing.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very generous of you guys. So for all those who are listening, make sure you give this a thumbs up and let us know what you do to be strategic with your social media. And also make sure you catch all of the speakers and the summit over at takebackyourbiz.com, where you'll also be entered into our massive giveaway. So that's all for now. Thanks, ladies.
Bye, Lauren.